Welcome to Around the Exchange Table, where we're serving up stories of culture, connection, and community. Each episode will share real experiences from students, host families, and coordinators who make international exchange possible. So pull up a chair and let's explore the world of cultural exchange, one story at a time. Hello, and welcome back to Around the Exchange Table, where we explore the people and stories that make cultural exchange come alive. I'm your host, Sandrine Clement, and today we're taking you behind the scenes of one of the most important roles in international exchange, the local coordinator. Local coordinators are the heart of our programs. They mentor, problem solvers, cheerleaders, and community builders. And today we're lucky to be joined by someone who brings all of that to life, Christy Brandt. Christie has been a dedicated local coordinator with STS Foundation. She's helped countless students and host families navigate the adventure of an exchange year. In this episode, we're diving into what her role really looks like, the moments that inspire her, the challenges she navigates, and the impact she sees in her community. Whether you're curious about becoming a local coordinator yourself or just love a good story about connection and cultural exchange, you're going to enjoy this conversation. So Christy, welcome to the podcast. Before we get started, can you tell us a little bit about yourselves and how you first got involved with STS Foundation?
Absolutely. Thanks for having me. I reside out of Cape Coral, Florida. I've been here for about 17 years and originally from Chicago. And I got into the exchange program, honestly, with my cousins that also works here in Indiana. She's a local creator out of there. She's always wanted me to take on an exchange student. And I'm always saying, I'm too busy or I can't do it. And then I wanted to get involved and see possibly my son going abroad. So then once I kind of talked with a couple of people and then jumped into it, I love it. And they haven't looked back since.
And you are definitely great at it. That's why we're really excited to have her share so much more about her insight with you. So with that in mind, Christy, what do you think makes someone a great local coordinator?
I think a patience, definitely a good listener, and just a people person. You definitely have to relate to your host families. You have to relate to your coworkers and your peers because you work a lot with them, finding host families. And then also with the exchange students. Sometimes there is a little bit of language barrier, but I think definitely just helping them out as much as possible and seeing the light at the tunnel as far as you're making these exchange students' dreams come true. I think that makes a big difference.
It absolutely does. And I think being a people person, like you said, is really the core of what makes someone successful in this role. And there's a lot to learn in this role as well. I think we always say students come here to learn about the United States, but we learn so much from our students. And I'm sure you learn from your host family. So what have you personally learned through this role about the people, the culture, or even about yourself?
Well, definitely that a lot of the countries dressed up when they go to grocery stores. That was the first for me. And down here in Florida, yes, everyone can dress up and go out, but definitely I think it's more of a 5 o'clock feel of sandals and shorts. So a lot of my students come here thinking that they're going to dress up every day. And then they realize the students are just in yoga pants or clothes and just relaxed fit. So when I heard about their countries where just to go out to get a loaf of bread, that they're dressed to the nine. Also, with just food culture as well, too. We have probably 9 different Oreo samples and flavors where a lot of other places just tell me they only have 1 or 2 options. So that was a first. And also just sports as well, too. I mean, there's a lot of sports here that we have in the United States, just alone in Florida, that they don't have the opportunity. So that was a big deal. So they're definitely like coming here for, I would say the cheerleading is the number one. Having lockers. That's another thing is true that lockers not a popular thing in other countries. And football. That's a big deal, too.
Absolutely. And it's football season right now. So we're seeing all the great stories and great photos that we get from our students going to football games. So talking of these experiences that you have, do you have one special connection story or an experience that really stands out from your time as a local coordinator?
I would say, I mean, I really I do a lot of field trips with my students, and that makes me happy because not all families have the ability, which is totally fine. It's not required by any means to take their students outside of the home and get to venture out. So I try to get together with my students prior to them coming, find out what they like to do. I always ask their favorite color and kind of go into their animal, like what they're expecting to get out of this, as well as what they really want to do while they're in Florida. So I kind of take that and then just plan a field trip about it. So we've already done an airboat ride. And that was a lot, just to see people, the students' expressions for the first time that they never saw an outside alligator. That was a big deal. A lot of them all thought they were going to jump up and get them. So I had to reassure them that. And then we have a couple other things planned in the pipeline where I'm going to sleep over actually at the Tampa Aquarium. So I'm looking forward to that in April. So yeah, just the first time of them experiencing things, I think that's a big deal. And also making their dreams come true.
So sweet. You do so much for our students, Christy, and that's why we appreciate you and so many of our local coordinators who really go above and beyond for our students. And speaking of special moments, has there been moments that surprised you, either in a challenging way or unexpected joy?
Yeah, I would say I had a student last year that she came to me. She had trouble with meeting friends. Obviously, at the high school, we have a new rule now in our area for our high schools. But last year, you were able to take your cell phone everywhere. And I think that really disconnects the students from the students from the teacher. And she was not used to that. So she kept telling me every day, we would talk. And the first couple of weeks that she arrived, and she would just let me know that she's having trouble. Everyone's got their heads down, either on their phone or watching videos. And she really wanted to make friends. And then not even like a month or two later, I just told her to join sports. She literally joined every possible sport from the time she was here to the time she left. And then right before she left, her host mom threw her a Sweet 16 that basically it was around the racetrack for the Kentucky Derby. And so we all dressed up, and she probably has the most friends I've ever seen. She had a group for lacrosse, a group for swim, a group for swimming, a group for basketball. And I was like blown away because this was the girl that said she couldn't make any friends and that she was worried about that. So I think that was a really big deal.
Yeah, thank you for helping her go through that. And if there's any students who are listening who might struggle with the same thing with making friends, getting involved in sports, Christy, you would agree that's the best way.
Yeah, that, or I would tell people too, I know a lot of sports are not offered at a lot of high schools. So I have a lot of students that do equestrian, right? That's not offered through their school. So you could go outside. I always give them options, but I have some people that are into drama or art. There's always other things through either a local YMCA or another group. I mean, honestly, Google is your friend in this way. So I always try to help the students to say, plan ahead of time. The area you're going to, look to see what you want to do. Look at the website on the school too. I tell my students prior to coming here, research, read the reviews. So that way what you want to do when you get here, because honestly, once they come, it just takes off and it's super quick. And so that's why I think it's best to kind of have them start looking at that prior to them arriving.
What a good piece of advice there. Thank you, Christy.
Of course.
Is there a time that you felt especially proud of a student or a host family that you worked with, whether they overcame a challenge like what you just described, or just proud of the work that they put in together to make this a successful year?
Yeah, I do. I had another student too that sometimes things don't always work out the way that you want them to, and they had to switch to host family, which is no problem, right? We always say that if that comes up, we're all human. Sometimes that does. And he really took it with a grain of salt and was able to switch families and go through the rest of the time and not let that bother or skip a beat. And I really appreciate that. And that was a big deal on both parties too, right? We're all adults. And I said that if something does not work out, or I always tell my host families, if something comes up, it's not a binding contract, right? So if something, they need to let us know, but we always have other families willing to jump in, and that, I appreciate that too. Everyone's
Yeah.
in the community.
I think that's something that's good to remember, that host family change can happen. They happen. That's the reality of it. And there's nothing wrong with that. I know you, Christy, do an amazing job trying to match our students and our host family to the best of your ability. But at the end of the day, we're all human and we're all dealing with paper applications on either side.
Absolutely.
So we do the best that we can. But thank you. So talking a little bit more about your role. So if we were to follow you around for a day as a local coordinator, and I know you obviously have a full-time job. Most of our local coordinators have full-time job. They do this on the side. But focusing on what you do as a local coordinator, what would your day look like?
You would have to be staying up late with me. Like, so I do a lot of hosting in the evening. So I try to, it can get fast-paced movement. Sometimes they'll overwhelm me when you have a couple students and then you reach out, because you have to be prepared that if you're going to advertise on a student, what I mean by that is post and try to look for a host family, that you are going to get probably inundated with requests, and then you have to go through and make sure that you answer everybody. So you always want to put time aside that you could reach everyone out. And sometimes that always doesn't happen because sometimes Facebook is not the best where messages go through. So that's why I always give my cell phone number on my post. But I would say that I look at a student that usually has a particular interest, if it's soccer, horseback riding, tennis, something that they like to do. And then I try to match them with that family. I think that makes a big difference because something that the student matches with a family that has similar interests, I think that's going to only make for a better school year for the student and the host family, honestly. So I will go ahead and once I find a student, then I'll make a little post about them with some artwork, and then I'll start posting to those specific groups. So if that is for soccer or equestrian, and then just kind of go through there and then just follow up with host families that are interested. And then if somebody has only specific time, then I just make those calendar reminders and start making those calls through the week when someone's available.
So you just mentioned that you're posting on Facebook. So can you tell us a bit more about how you go about finding and connecting with potential host families in your community?
Absolutely. I do some outreach programs with local things from my malls, but there's a lot of outdoor, I would say, events that I could go to. And then also with schools too. I do some open houses and stuff like that. And then besides the events, and I would say honestly, it's Facebook, joining groups, because that is where most of my families are. And then I always say, just get on the phone with me, because I would say probably 85 of my past host families, their spouse, one way or another, said no right away. And that's why I call it knee-jerk reaction. My spouse did the same thing, because it's something new. You're saying you're having a stranger in your home from another country, but really it's not like that at all. And as soon as we had ours, it was like that changed a lot too. So that's why I say that definitely talk with me, get the information, and then go back to your spouse and talk to them. That way you have everything in that you want to go ahead and discuss with them. Or sometimes I do a lot of group calls too, where the wife or the husband's not able to join, or the kids were not able to join when I talk to the parents. So the natural students will come on, and then I'll answer any questions as well too. So that's no problem there.
Nice. And I think that's where it came back at the beginning when I asked you what makes a great local coordinator. You said being a people person. And I think that's where it really shows through that
Absolutely,
this is
I agree.
where it's needed. So you obviously, part of your role is recruiting and vetting these host families. The other part is providing the support for the students and the host families. So before the student arrives, what kind of support and preparation do you provide to help the host family and the school get ready for that student arriving?
No, that's a great question. So with a family, I always make sure that because you could go over everything, even if it's a quick couple minute conversation or an hour, and that it's hard to retain a lot of information. So I always try to follow up with an email to say what I went over, and documentation too, right? We do provide a lot of good documentation. So if they have any questions down the line, if it's with insurance or anything that pops up, so I try to go over that with them. And also along the way of what the application is, if that's where your student just got placed in the school, or your student just got told that they have a new host family, I try to make sure that I stay in the loop with the family, both sides and students, so they're aware. And then they always know that they can contact me anytime. I've had host families that contact me in the middle of the night, not a problem. Same thing with students, stuff does come up. Or if they're traveling, they come in and there's travel problems. Obviously, that's different time difference, so then that can come up as well too. But yeah, so I just try to just over communicate, right? I'm a very transparent person, so I just tell my families that when I meet them, same thing with my students. And then on phone calls beforehand, especially with the students, I arrange that. I'll start, like, for instance, I have 4 semester students that are coming in the beginning of this January coming up. And I have 8 locally to myself right now that's within a 30-mile radius. So I've already had those students talk to me. And then my old students, which of the 8, meet the new 4. So that way they're all going to combine together. And then I also say, hey, does anyone want to share information as far as if it's their Instagram, social, or even their phone number? Because then they can start talking. A lot of my students last year became best friends, and they were not staying at the same host family. They weren't even staying at the whole same town or school. And they still talk to this day and visit each other. And they're in 2 different countries. So that was neat.
That's really nice. And we love it when you're able to create a group of students like that. That's why we always encourage our local coordinators to place at least 3 students. Obviously, you, Christy, place way more than that. But so that was about how you prepare before they arrive. And then during the year, you're also present to give support to both the student and the host family. So what does that look like? What does that support look like?
Well, when they arrive, I make a folder for all my host families. So when they arrive, they have all the documentation they need. If it's their birth certificate, their visa, their medical card, and any other documentation that they would need. I prepare a folder for them when I have my host family orientation. So I do it with all my other host families. I think that's great, because then the host family can meet other host families. and then they could see what other questions come up. And then I always make sure we have that great STS Facebook group that's for our host families. So I always try to invite them if they have a Facebook feed. And then I just go over what to expect. And then when the student comes as well, I let them know. And then I always let them know that I check in with them monthly, right? The host family, I check in monthly, the student as well as school. But I always say in between, please don't wait until that month, because at any given time, if something comes up, reach out to me. So I just try to always say it. And then if there's somebody that I would say that comes to me and they have a concern, if it's the family or the student, then I just follow back up with them for the next couple of days or weeks to make sure that everything is kosher, and that if they need my support, then I step in where needed.
Amazing. Thank you for providing this great support for the students. I think it makes a world of difference. And that's why we say that local coordinators are really the heart of the exchange program, because you're that first person there to support our students and our host family. And what a great impact that has, obviously, on them, on you. But we often talk about how exchange has a greater impact on the local community. Is this something that you've observed, Christy? And how do you feel like cultural exchange has impacted your community as a whole?
I do. I think a lot of people, just even my local family or friends, my network that I have, when they see that I'm having a Christmas party and then I have other students coming over and they're like, what's this about? Right. Like I said, I take a lot of my students, like the other weekend, I had 4 of my students stay over because the host families all had something going on, and they decided, the students, that they don't want to go, and the family said no problem. So they decided to sleep over at my house. So then that way, a couple of girls, one time I went ahead and took everyone to get pedicures. And so they had that experience, and then they got to have manicures, and everyone wanted to test out crumble cookies. So we went and did that as well. But so I have a couple of students that really like Starbucks and stuff like that. So I really go ahead and try to connect with that as far as that aspect. And then just saying, again, just saying into like whatever the students need, I try to go ahead and be at their needs. Whatever they reach out to me, I'm available. Same thing with those families. I think that's a really big key component of that.
Yeah. And then obviously you're taking them out in the community all the time, and everyone gets to meet them. And I think that creates that curiosity and those questions.
It is, yeah. So they do like, that's a lot. How's this about? And I think that's the biggest thing. Because I always tell families, and I know it sounds funny, but there are basically a walking billboard, and not in that way that I'm advertising the student, but if you really think about it, once you get the student, your neighbor is going to be like, what's going on? Because we know everybody has those nosy neighbors. And then they're going to be like, oh, does she adopt? Is this sort of here? So then you start talking, but like I always tell my families, if it's not for them, this program would not happen, right? And it would not make these dreams come true. We need those families in order to run this program. So I say it's a really big key component to bring your exchange student out. Obviously they do as well, but talk about it. Don't look at it bad like, oh, this is my exchange student. I always let my exchange student, right? I always say that beforehand when we go out, like, do you mind me being open and talking about that? Because I think it's a big deal. And they're appreciative too, that they know that if they didn't get picked, then they wouldn't be able to come here. So I think the most we could do to talk about the community to teachers, co-workers, anything, I think that plays a big part. So this keeps on going. And then also, like you said, with the culture fact, like with the community, they're learning different things as well. If it's from cooking to, so many times I've had people come up and ask questions and they answered great. And that's why I always try to bring my students with, when I'm doing community events, with that. Exactly. That's great. I bring usually a couple, 1 to 3 if I do a open house, or like I said, a different event at a mall, because I think it's a big deal for them to see the exchange students there and talk about it as well too. So that's really good.
Absolutely. It's really, it makes such a big impact. It's like a snowball effect. When you bring the students, it makes that snowball effect. And so another part of your role, I know we always say local coordinators are jack of all trades.
Jack of all trades. It is.
You do so much.
It is.
So something else that you do is you build relationship with schools, because we have to make a placement happen. We need a school spot in a host family. So what do schools usually say when they get involved in hosting and supporting exchange students? How is that for them?
Well, I'm really blessed with my community. I have a really great school system that allows them to come here and really doesn't put a limit. And because I do have a lot of students from all over different countries, so that's really nice. They get excited. I have some teachers that really think it's great, and they go over and beyond, and they talk about it to the other students. So I always tell students too, like everybody just go ahead and let them know, because we also offer referrals as well. So I tell my students, hey, if you want to make a little bit extra cash, that's a great way too, because I'm like, tell the friends that you're meeting, or possibly that those students' kids will study abroad, right? We do both ends of that. So they do get excited. There's some schools I have to go ahead and speak with more, because I think they're looking at like, this is new. Again, it kind of goes back to talking with spouses, not the unknown. So I think once we set up, even if we have to have a Zoom call, I've gone into schools before, personally met principals and stuff. And I think once they realize what this is about, I think it's a big deal. I think the unknown is the scary part of sometimes it's like, no, we don't even want to look into it because we don't know about it. So they get shut down. But I just keep knocking on their door because I said, until you give me a couple minutes and you realize that you're going to love it.
Absolutely. You are really you're educating all these people about the program because like you say, a lot of the time when someone says they don't want to be involved, it's just out of not knowing what this is about. Once they realize what it's about,
the unknown.
People are excited for it. So out of everything that you do, have you seen any lasting relationship or ripple effects from the work that you put in?
I do. I mean, I've only been here for a few years, so I know that more to come with that because I've heard a lot of that's another thing that when I got excited about coming on is that everyone says that when they had their exchange student, now they're visiting them when they're getting married or having kids. So I think that's a big deal. And even through my travels, I met a lot of people. Like I actually just coming back recently from somewhere, I met a couple that was an exchange student 15 years ago, and now they're visiting from Iceland, their host family in Orlando, and they brought their two kids. They brought the same flight as me, and they brought their two kids to stay with them in Orlando, and they're going to stay with them for 2 weeks and do their holiday and do all the parks. So I think that's really amazing to know that 15 years later, they're still in connection with their host family. So I'm more to come on that because I know that since I've only been here for a couple of years, but yes, I know my family still talk to the students. I know that everyone has busy lives and gets into it, but even if it's not often, to still have that connection, I think that's a big deal. And a lot of the natural parents do want the host family to come visit them in their country to experience that as well too, to say like, let me go ahead and have you guys come out here and show you around. So I think that's a big deal too. I think that's nice to reciprocate that and get to have that experience of finally getting to see their country too, if that's the ability of doing that.
Yeah, and I'm sure, I have no doubt that if we catch up with you in 50 years, you're going to have been visiting your exchange students and everything like that. Because I know you've only been with us for a couple of years, Christy, but you've done so much already. You've done so much for our students, for our host family, and for your community. So we talked about the different aspects of the work, and some of them are very administrative. There's paperwork to be done, there's placements to be placed, and then others are way more emotional. You have to be a mentor. You have to be navigating different conversations between host families and extensions. So how do you balance these two aspects? Do you feel like you have these two sides to you that you can go back and forth? What is that like?
Yeah, I do. It's hard. I will say that is part of the job too. I said sometimes it feels like you have to be a therapist as well too, because I know that a lot of times the students just want to be heard. And I think the number one thing I tell my families too, I would say that I hear on both ends, is just communication. The host family thinks that the student should do this or thought this is what they meant and vice versa, but no one communicates. So I just have to step in and be that middle person. I'm okay to be the bad person on either end as well too. I always say that throw it back on me, that's my job. So that sometimes that does challenge you where you got to go ahead and be a little bit more, I wouldn't say stern, but with the students, it's just realign expectations because everyone knows prior to signing up what the expectation is. And overall, I just want them to have the best exchange year as well as the host family, right? Because I mean, that makes a big deal too. We want our host families to have this enjoyable experience so they could share with their families and also for them to rehost. I think that a lot of families like to do that. They might take off a year and then re-sign back up, but I think it's great. And I had some host families that will host year after year. So I feel like I could flip on that role easily when somebody reaches out to me, and then you just have to, I'm a mom myself. So I think that's just part natural of being in mom mode. I mean, so what can I do to help? And let's get this executed and get it done.
I like that. I think that's so true. And I think that's why we have a lot of moms who become local coordinators, whether they're moms of their own children or host moms, because we have some people who become parents through hosting. Yeah. And a lot of
foster moms too. I've foster too. That's really nice.
Yes, absolutely. So what would you say to someone who's curious about becoming a local coordinator, but isn't sure that they could do it?
Well, I always tell my manager that if I could do it, anybody could do it. So working multiple jobs and also just holding out a fort with my blended family, right? So I have the two twins and then my 6-year-old son, which has a very busy schedule. And then also just I do travel a lot as well too. So I think anything's possible. It's really not hard at all. When I mean that is it just takes a couple of clicks, a couple of copying and pasting and getting the word out, really. And then once you take off and you start getting a couple of families, I think that makes a big difference. And if anyone's scared, I always say And I always refer this to my family as student. If they're unsure and maybe they don't want to also just talk to me or take my word from it, I say reach out to my current or past host family. They're all willing to share their story and relate to if a husband's has a question about something or a wife is unsure about something. I say, hey, reach out to one of my family, then we provide that information to them if they're concerned about that. So, but I do think that again, it kind of takes that leap about what I was saying about earlier. I think that it really, once you find it, and you really can pick your own time. It's not where you have to clock in, clock out. If you do it at your own pace, and I think that's great. And there's a lot of perks about it with as well too. I mean, you're helping a lot of these students have their dreams come true, and it opens up doors for a lot of other avenues.
Absolutely. And for anyone who's interested in learning more about becoming a local coordinator, you can head over to the stsfoundation.org website and check out our Become Local Coordinator section. We have a lot more information. And then we'd be happy to put you in touch with local coordinators like Christy, who can tell you more about the role. So, Christy, what's your absolute favorite part about being a local coordinator?
I would say relate with the students. I know that when we went on our training trip, you saw that I ended up being at the table with the exchange students that weren't even mine. So I ended up relating to them. I think that's great. I love hearing their stories. And just even a little thing that they are having trouble or just hearing what they're excited for and what they get to experience. It's great seeing that through their eyes in different perspectives. So I would say definitely making their dreams. I think students don't realize either how big of a local coordinator job is. Played a part because we are picking their homes and vetting people, which that's a hard thing. That can be challenging as well too. So, but I think that's the biggest thing is just relating and having the ability for the students to come here and having the best year. So that makes the best part of the job.
Yeah, it makes you feel young again as well. I feel like whenever I'm around students,
exactly,
it makes me want to be back to being an exchange student again.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. And then I've got one more question for you, Christy.
Yeah,
Thank you. You've been amazing today, sharing all of this information, giving people a real insight into what it's like to be a local coordinator and everything that you do. I'd love it if you could describe it just in one sentence or two. I know it can be hard in one sentence, but what does it really mean to you to be a local coordinator?
Well, that's tough one here. So what is it? Let's think here. I would say honestly, the student, I really do. I say that just opening my heart and hearing their stories. I really think that's a big deal. And also with the families too, you meet a great family along the way. So I think that's the biggest, really just connect with everyone. It's really connection. It's really a small world at the end of the day when you look at it and see how this person got connected with this person and it goes from there. I think that's a big deal.
It's all about the connections. And this is what we're about with this podcast, sharing these connections that happen. Well, thank you, Christy. Thank you again for your time today. It was an absolute pleasure having you on.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that, Sandrine.